Emily and I are here today to give you a tour of Sweetlands. This is from Uchibakoa and designer Tatsuya Chu. I think I've pronounced that correctly. I hope I have. But this, despite looking like a pleasant and light game...
It has a very beautiful theme, right?
Yes, artwork-wise. But when you look at this thing on the table, it looks like anything but light.
Yes, it's definitely a Euro for Euro lovers, right? It's a heavier side of the game with quite a few components out here.
Yeah, so we're going to give you a little bit of a tour and then talk about a couple of the specific things that we think are what you want to take away from learning about the game. You see it here set up, and it should be said this is a prototype. It's undergoing quite a few changes. We don't have all of the right pieces with all the right printing on it yet.
Sure.
So they are still developing and tweaking things. But you can see here, this is the main board out here, or boards, if you will. And then down here is one person's player board.
Just one person's setup.
We don't even have both of our player boards on here because we wanted to show you with some detail what's going on. But Emily had a whole other one like this. This was mine in the end. And even this is 3 pieces, as you can see.
Yes.
You're going to get this piece, you're going to get your player board, and even inside this player board, there's a variable character that you're sliding in. They have 12 characters, or at least that was what was in our prototype. And then you have this up here, which is an industry track and a food track among some other scoring information.
This game has tracks on tracks on tracks, though. The biggest and most important ones are going to be these ones that in your top left corner are your prosperity tracks. So what we're doing in this game is we are trying to show that we could be the best ruler for Sweetlands possible. And the way we do it, there are 6 main prosperity ways to show that we are doing a great job. But you are going to get to choose which ones you want to invest in during the game. So as you move up these tracks, you can start saying like, okay, for everything that I've seen on the board, it's going to be 3 to 1. But if I get my marker all the way to the end, the hexes are going to be worth 1 to 1, depending on how far I push it.
Yeah, basically all the things that you're doing in the game, and the main things, are all going to be scored there at the end of the game. Plus, some of these tracks have some bonuses that you can get along the way. But at the end, you're going to want to get some of these, definitely not all of them, up towards the end so that you can score some points on the very specific things that you've been investing in and trying to put effort towards all game long.
And to be fair, you do want to get all of them. It's just very hard to get all of them.
You're not gonna.
Because what you're doing as you go throughout the game is that we're taking different actions on this action part of the board, which is where we're doing most of our things. They're going to allow us to put stuff on our own player boards, go up a lot of different tracks. But the way we do it is not with something on here, actually. It's with the cards that we have in our hand.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It kind of feels like worker placement, but all these discs out here are universal. No one has workers that they're putting out. Whenever you take one of these actions, you're going to put one of these discs on here. But everyone's going to have typically a hand of 6 cards.
Yes.
And to put a disc out there, you have to discard at least one of your cards, which is the first note of multi-use cards that you're going to get a taste of here. So you're going to discard a card and choose any one of these to put on here. Now, there's a rub. If it's the first one that you're placing, that's 1 card. But now if Emily wants to go here, she's going to have to discard 2 cards to go here, then someone's going to have to discard 3 cards to go there. So you can see that sort of worker placement-esque tension of like, oh, they went there, now it's going to cost me more. It's not completely blocked. And it should be noted, this is a 2-player game. In a 3- and 4-player game, there's actually a couple extra boards that give you some options for copying some of these actions.
Yes, imitation boards. But some of the actions, too, are like special actions where there is only 1 spot per round. So there is a little bit of blocking with that as well. Like, if I go here, which is a pretty unique one, I can place my token down and I get a token. So usually we don't own any of these. But what this means is that later in the round, I can place this out for free, not paying any cards this time, and just get to take this action. So now it's allowing me to kind of delay a little bit and decide what I want to do later.
Yeah, there's some other interesting actions. Across the top, you see some, just give you some resources. Diamonds are very valuable for very specific things. Money is always useful. This one is another interesting one where you can place there, spending a card, and then you're just drawing 2 cards. So you're effectively not only getting more cards in your hand, you're netting 1 card, but you're also kind of delaying your action a little bit. This game definitely has, once the action phase is happening, that aspect of like, oh, you know what? I'm going to get more cards. I mean, it's always good to have more cards.
It is always good to have more cards.
Because you're basically going to be able to do more things typically. And plus, you might get a card in your hand where you're like, oh, I actually don't want to discard this to take an action. I want to actually play this card, which is the other thing that you can do on your turn. You can either do this or play a card. And when you play a card, there's a couple different kinds, but usually most of them are immediate cards that you're going to play. And it has a cost at the top, and then an immediate action in the middle. And then at the bottom, or at least a little above the bottom, there's a number of different tags. This is going to give you slight, very slight nods to like a Terraforming Mars style game. In fact, some of the things you're doing in this game will feel that way in terms of playing these cards, keeping them out in a tableau. You can actually tuck some of these cards by automating them and putting them under your board, and then things that you're going to do on your board and other places are going to trigger specific automations where you can fire those off again.
And I think, too, the biggest thing that looks like Terraforming Mars is the fact that when you play those cards, a lot of those cards allow you to not just do actions, but up your income. So you have four different types of income, 3 of the basic resources, and then the coins. And so every time you're playing these things, if it has the square around it, it's showing you that that income gets to go up, and every round you're going to get that income again. So at the beginning of the game, we're getting barely anything, and we're just trying to make do with what we have. But by the end of the round, we have tons of like cubes for different resources. We're trying to do a lot with the limiting resource being our cards and how many actions we can actually take.
Yeah, those cards are a resource, but like Emily said, this is the other thing that definitely does feel like Terraforming Mars, because you get these cubes. In fact, they use all the same cubes even.
Yes.
There's little, medium, and big size cubes. You just put them in the corresponding resource spot. And even some of the cards might say, oh, take your production down in this one, but move your production up on this one, which very much feels like some of the things you do in terraforming. Yes. But other than that, the game is very, very different. You have your own player board over here where you're actually building Sweetlands. So the building of Sweetlands is a layered process. Yes. A lot of these actions are going to let you, for example, this one lets you take 3 tiles and place them out. When you place tiles, this is kind of like cultivating the land before you would build. But you're going to place the tiles starting down at the bottom of your board and kind of grow out. You want to grow out for a number of reasons, one of which you want to have potentially multiple cities when you start building the buildings, but you also want to potentially reach these ports. In fact, you very much want to reach those ports because there's some big time negative points.
If you don't reach any of these ports, if you have a city that can't do anything on the water, that's negative 40 points for you as a leader at the end.
At the end of the game, you want to avoid those negative points.
But then once you have them explored too, you want to also put roads out. Yes. And what roads are going to do are really say like, okay, now we can actually use this land. And once we can use this land, not only do I get a bonus once I put a road on it, but I also get another bonus if I put an actual building on it. Yeah. So it's kind of a layered of like, find the land, put a road out, get a building on top of it, and then all while you're doing this, trying to find ports, get bonuses, and also make sure your cities are aligned so you have multiple.
Yeah, all the various tiles, when activated, and like Emily said, they'll activate up to, I guess, 2 or 3 times, right? Yeah. When you have this side and it's activated, it's going to generally give you an option. The blue ones just let you go up 2 in the production of your money. Yep. But the other ones, the green, the gray, and sort of orangish ones, those are going to let you either increase your production of a corresponding resource or go up on the corresponding prosperity track. Yep. So early game, you're probably going to flip those and activate them to increase your production because you start with some and they're variable, but not a lot. You'll find round around, you're like, oh, I need more wood for sure.
Exactly. And like you said, they are variables. So with your different character, you are also going to have different character powers. Yeah. So like you had one where when you took a specific action, you could pay with wood instead of wheat. I had one that was giving me a discount on iron. So how you're actually trying to go and what you might actually build into could definitely vary based on which character you're playing this game.
Yeah. In addition to putting tiles out and the roads, you're also building the buildings. And this is a big, big part of the game. There are 3 different building types here in the center of the board. Some across the bottom of the board, another one across the top of the board, and there's one which is this sort of ice cream cone upside down melting that is a special building that you have to unlock by doing a lot of different things.
A lot of different things.
And like we said, when you place those buildings, it's going to cost you, but when you place them, it's going to activate those tiles. You're going to generally get a bonus depending on what building you build, and you're trying to build cities. So you can go a few different routes on this, but generally speaking, you want to create multiple cities because throughout the game, when you pass, you're going to score a number of things, one of which is based on the number of cities you have. And a city is any cluster of buildings of 3 or more. But
Different types.
Yeah, different types of buildings. You have to have at least 3 different types of buildings. You can't have 2 of the same.
Yeah.
But what you want to try to do is avoid putting new buildings out that connect 2 cities,
Yes.
because guess what? Then you have 1 city there instead of 2,
Yes.
so you're going to get less on the city score.
So for David's example, before he had placed these 2, he would have had 2 separate cities because they each have 3 types. But then once he placed
Even
this
one of
one,
them.
even just one of them, now it's one big city because it's all connected. So you're trying to both get a lot of different numbers of cities for more points, but also just trying to put all your buildings out so you can actually produce things.
The last thing that you're going to be putting out on your map are these little cookie bunnies, I think is what they're called. This is something I did. This is something Emily
not
didn't
do.
do as much. But my character sort of encouraged me to do so.
Yeah.
I was putting bunnies out for not just wheat, but I could spend, like Emily said, wood instead. So I tried to build a wood engine to sort of serve that. And then I got a skill tile out here. We haven't even talked about those. The skill tiles are things you're going to be able to get throughout the game. There's some natural ways to get them, and then there's some icons that you might cover up on your map. As you can see, there's some icons here. One of them that I've got covered here, right there,
Thank
is
you.
a skill tile. You get it, grab a skill tile. These are a number of different things. Some of them are one-time immediate effects. Some of them are once a round that you just flip. Some of them are ongoing effects, like I had this one that gave me 3 points every time I placed one of those cookie bunnies. And then finally, you have some endgame scoring that's going to benefit
Well,
you.
some passing, right? So when you, on your
that's
turn,
right.
you can either play a card, use your cards to take actions, do a once per round, or if you don't do any of those things, you can pass.
Yeah.
You'll be done with the round. And typically you're going to score for your industry track, for your cities, and then any special things on your player board, or if you have anything that has this passing marker, you can also score for those things as well. Like each round, we start off the round with some starter bonuses. Some of those are passing ones
Yes.
as well. So you won't get them during income, you get them when you actually pass for the round.
Yeah, it really is interesting because you can kind of build up an engine that serves that passing situation, because
Yep.
the things that you can do during the game to score points are usually just going to happen when you pass. So I might pass and score not only some city points, but like Emily said, I had this one that gave me points when I passed for however far I was up on my food track. And once I got up on the food track a ways, I was like, well, that's attractive. So for the last 2 rounds, I think I scored 7 points on that twice for 14 points, which isn't nothing in this game. This is a
There's a lot of
high-scoring game.
scoring, though.
There's
At the
a
end of it,
ton.
there's a lot of scoring. So at the end of it, we're going to score not just what you've done through passing, but you're also going to look at those prosperity tracks and score for each different one of them. That made our score go up quite significantly, I would say.
Oh, yeah. The prosperity tracks, like Emily alluded to earlier, these are tied to what you've been doing. So depending on how far you've gotten up, like for instance, I was up here, so I got 7 points for every cookie bunny that I had out here.
And you had, what, 6 cookie bunnies?
I did. So I had 42 points there
Yes.
in just that. But it's because I made an effort to try to get up this prosperity track as well. On the flip side, if you don't go up a prosperity track, no matter
matter.
how well you progressed here, you're getting 0.
Yes.
Like it's 0 times any number, it's 0 in case you didn't know that.
But there's still many ways to get points. So like
Yes.
throughout the game, we had milestones we were trying to achieve. First to achieve those got the 10 points at the end. We did 3 out of the 5 of those.
And those are variable.
Those
They
are
have a
variable.
number of those.
And then we also have final scoring tiles where they're going to say like who has played the most cards or who has the most hexes of a certain color. And then you're going to count those up. If you meet past the benchmark of like the virtual player,
Yeah, that was interesting.
you could get points for first place or points for second place. If you don't meet that benchmark, the virtual player might get the points. And even though they don't score at all, they are taking them away from you at the
Yeah,
very
they're
least.
basically just there. And that's in every player count. That's not
Yes.
just a 2-player experience. You have to get past a certain benchmark
Yes.
to, and it's not just scoring 1. You
No.
have to get to a certain point to get any of that. Yeah, it's a really interesting amount of scoring. Actually, during the game, points were scored for sure. Like I said, if you build those engines, you can score some. I think towards the end, you were in like the 20 to 30 range.
Yes.
I was in the 40 to 50 range before the end game scoring. And then the end game scoring, it took us a while.
Yes, it
Like
took
to
us
go
quite some
through
time.
that. It's a significant amount, but this is a heavy, heavy game. If we didn't say that right off the bat, this is a heavy game. I would put this squarely, probably not in Lacerda realm, but
I wouldn't
close.
go that far.
No.
I would go close. And I think the thing that makes it more complicated is the fact that you can score in so many different ways.
Yeah.
So what you're doing throughout the game, while it's all interconnected and like to automate more cards, you need to get more buildings out. To get more buildings out, you need to get hexes. All this stuff comes together. but it's still it's something where you want to try to do one specific lane and do it really well, and you can choose what that lane is depending on which game you're playing.
Yeah, and we did talk about the cards, but we did kind of gloss over them. The card play is very interesting too. Some of the cards that you're going to play, like I said, have those tags. Those tags are going to come into play a number of different ways. Some of the cards have a discount for every certain tag you have. But more importantly, some of them have immediate effects that say, do this. Then, if you have 3 of this tag and 1 of this tag, do it again, which can be very powerful. So oftentimes you'll be looking in your hand like, oh, I want to play this. And you'll look down and you go, oh, I need 1 more cake tag. So then you try to get another cake tag card played so that then when you play that, you can do sort of the juicier version.
But do you have enough money to get the cake card played?
The answer to that is no, generally.
And then when you don't have enough money, you're like, what can I do? But you have all these free actions to do a bunch of trades. However, they're never as efficient as you want them to be.
No, the free actions they're going to be used. They say that even in the rule book. They say, get used to the free actions. Use them a lot. This is going to be sort of like converting a resource for another resource, things like that. But it costs 3 resources of one kind
to get one of another.
The one that is the craziest, to draw another card, is 15 coin. And just to let you know, at the beginning of the game, I started with
producing 12.
Yeah, 12 or something like that. That is not a lot of coin. And that coin goes away really, really quickly. The most I think I used it is when I was lacking 1 resource. You can spend 3 coin.
4 coin.
Or 4 coin for any resource. And that's where I found that I spent most
But you
of
don't
my
want to
coin.
do that accidentally, because if you go 4 coin to 1 resource, you can then trade that 1 resource back into 1 coin.
Yeah, it doesn't go both ways. You can't get 15 coins for a card.
So you really want to build your engine to do whatever you're specifically trying to do and make use of that efficiency, not just rely on the free actions.
Yeah, and just so you know too, last thing, this doesn't go on forever. It is a 5-round game. And I can tell you this, it goes pretty quick. And it ramps not really fast at the beginning, but by the end, you'll be surprised at how much you could achieve. Because we were in, say, I think we were even certainly in round 2 and 3, where we were like, what are we going to get done?
I know it was very hard to get things done, but then once your incomes go up and you're able to really get some of those efficiencies going with your tableau, you're like, oh, now I got it. I can do all this stuff.
Exactly.
Never enough.
We ended up building a lot more buildings, reaching a lot more places on our map than I ever thought possible. And in fact, there is one place you can reach on your map where you can actually build a special tile and choose from a collection of special tiles that give you
very juicy,
very, very powerful turns. But yeah, that is Sweetlands. There is a lot to this game, so we'll be happy to talk about it more. If you want to get down in the comments, please do. We'll answer any questions you have. Until next time, though, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.